Part 83. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 822. Lily's eyes fell on the book in her hand, and she didn't even raise her eyelids when she spoke. The wide cuffs of her palace clothes slipped between her elbows as she raised her hands, revealing a large piece of white and tender wrists, covered with a pair of jasper-carved wristbands. Jade bracelet's calm appearance and words once again made Yinmin angry. Just as she was about to speak, the Queen Mother stopped her with a gloomy face. "You said a few days ago that you wanted to fill the harem for the Emperor. After thinking about it, I disagree. After these girls are all heroes, their father and brother may be the Emperor's sworn brothers. Doing so will disturb the rules of human ethics. What kind of peace of mind do you have?" When the Queen Mother spoke, her tone was very serious, and her expression became a little sinister. She was about to curse Lily again for her ulterior motives, but Lily's expression changed, and the roster she originally held in her hand fell to the ground with a snap. She was still smiling just now, but now her face looks like the sky in June. The child's face changes at a moment's notice, and then sinks, even worse than the Queen Mother's face. She was originally lying down with one hand on the mattress, but now she sat up with her palm on the soft couch. Her eyes were very cold, one shoulder was half slanted, and the loose collar slid down, revealing half of her roundness. "Come on your shoulders." Lily stretched out her hand and pulled up the collar in a slow and orderly manner, stood up slowly, and stared at the Queen Mother. The Queen Mother does not agree. When Lily asked this, the Queen Mother was stunned. She didn't expect that before she could lose her temper after entering the palace, Lily turned out to be a bit more fierce than her mother-in-law. Before she could curse, he had already started smashing things to show off his face. How could this Yin Chu get himself a daughter-in-law? It was as if she had found an ancestor for herself. When the Queen Mother thought of this, she immediately felt angry and evil in her heart. His whole body was shaking with anger. He pointed at Lily and said, "You bitch! Shut up! Are you messing with Gang Chang? What kind of Gang Chang does your Yin family have? As a sister, you shamelessly stare at the housework in the younger brother's backyard. How many women does the Emperor sleep with every day? After sleeping with him several times, she wants to know it like the palm of her hand. How could the Empress Dowager allow such shameless and immoral behavior? When Changping sent a woman to the Emperor, why didn't the Empress Dowager mention the principles of human ethics? After sending a dirty little widow into the palace, the Emperor seemed to dote on him. It's not embarrassing, I don't even think I have the face to do so. Picking up rags and using them as jewelry is like losing a Tao family. Are you still here to talk to me about the status quo?" Lily sneered twice, regardless of the Queen Mother's words. Zhang's face was green and white with anger and his fingers were trembling. "Today I will put it here. I should take over all the affairs of the harem. The Queen Mother is getting old, so she just returns to the palace to enjoy peace and happiness. Read a few more articles. Buddhist sutras say, don't mind these nosy things. If the Queen Mother insists on taking care of it and misses this time, if the Queen Mother does not allow anyone to enter the palace, during the lifetime of this palace, as long as Tao is still there, no one else can enter the palace. If they go after Changping sent them again, one came to me and I killed one. I sent a pair and I killed a pair. If some lowly maids were pregnant with children, I would not admit it at all. I would give them decoction and kill their inheritance. If the Queen Mother wants the Emperor to despite my age, I still only have a single seedling in Yuanyi. This palace will help the Queen Mother, and the Queen Mother can think about it slowly." After saying that, Lily pursed her lips. With her eyes wandering, Hung Guan picked up the roster that had fallen to the ground and handed it to her hand. She reached out and took it, smiling and brushing away the non-existent dust on her head. The Queen Mother and Yin Men did not expect that she could be so fierce. After Lily said this, the mother and daughter were so frightened that they could not recover for a long time. The systematic voice in Lily's mind rang again. The Queen Mother's favorability towards the host is -15, and the Queen Mother's favorability towards the host is only 10. The task of suppressing Princess Changping's arrogance has been completed, and she will be rewarded with a graceful and moving dance. You are so brave. The Queen Mother's breath felt like it was stuck in her heart. She couldn't spit it out or swallow it. As a daughter-in-law, Lily had such an arrogant attitude, and she even dared to use Tao. When her family came to threaten her, the Queen Mother was so angry that her body could not help but tremble, but after thinking about it carefully, she could not do anything about Lily. Now Yin Chu really needs Tao's help, but people are not as good as 1,000 days, and flowers are not as good as 100 days. Hong, Tao's scenery is still the same today. Who knows what Tao will look like in many years? If Lily dares to treat her like this now, doesn't she want to think about the future? If the Tao family continues to decline and she makes such a fuss, isn't she afraid that one day when the Yin family becomes stronger and the Tao family has no use value, Yin Chuji will hate her? Could it be that she was really relying on it, thinking that since she gave birth to Yin Chu's only son, her son must be hers? The Queen Mother's cheek muscles couldn't help but twitch. She gritted her teeth tightly and swallowed the breath. She endured it for now. When the Yin family comes forward in the future, she will definitely want this Tao family. Kneeling in front of him, he spit the breath he had swallowed today into her face. See if this Lily Tao still dares to be as arrogant as she is today. It's not that you're brave, but you do have a bit of it, Lily sneered, looking at Queen Beihao's green and white face, snorted, and her eyes fell on Yin Min again. What problems does Changping have now? She directly pointed out that if Yin Min dared to stop her from choosing someone to enter the palace, she would kill Yin Min today. Mrs. Tao is still so tyrannical. She deserves it because she has the ability and confidence to dare to say such things. At this moment, Yin Min she was so jealous that she burst into tears. If she was the one with Tao's status today, would she dare to be like Lily, choosing whichever woman she wanted to enter the palace, without having to look at other people's faces? Whoever you want to prevent from meeting whomever you want to prevent from meeting whomever. Even if the other party is the emperor's biological sister and mother, is it still correct to reprimand him? At this moment, although Yin Min hated Lily for humiliating her in public, what she envied even more was Lily's arrogance. She longed for one day to be like Lily, where she didn't have to be afraid of anyone and could reach the top of power. Even the emperor would look at his face. She would definitely send the woman to the palace. As the eldest princess of Dechu, what she wanted to do was to be the most noble woman in Dechu. The two women no longer dared to meddle in Lily's business. They came angrily and left in despair. Not long after they left, Yin Chu's dragon chariot also arrived outside the Changkai palace. When Yin Chu entered the palace, his face was full of stormy anger. Unfortunately, Lily was not very afraid of him at this time. The two of them were now in a state of half-fighting. Yin Chu pointed at her with anger. When he was scolding, Lily didn't even stand up to salute and say hello. Ms. Tao, don't push yourself too far and think that I don't dare to do anything to you. Yin Chu felt the same as the Queen Mother at this moment. He even felt it more clearly. Although Tao Bei had the airs of a noble lady at the beginning, she could not stand up to him. When he was there, she was very obedient and loved him to the core. If he had come to Tao Bei Palace in the past, she would have received him warmly. She had never been so negligent as now. She was devoted to him and never said she would make him feel uncomfortable. He knew clearly that the Tao family was powerful, and for the sake of Yin Chu's self-esteem, he was deeply afraid that any of his words would accidentally touch his anger, and he was even cautious when speaking in front of him, although Yin Chu had never appreciated all of this at that time. Because he could never forget the shame that he relied on his father-in-law to make a fortune, but now that Lily no longer cared about his dignity, Yin Chu still felt that he couldn't bear it when she knew where he was uncomfortable and was trying to hurt him. "How dare you, your majesty, take advantage of me? Treat me one by one. What kind of place is this Chankyu palace? Rush in and scold you. The little yellow gate guarding outside the palace will be beaten to death with sticks, and let the other cheap maids take care of themselves. Look, it's useless." As soon as the Queen Mother and her daughter left, Yin Chu came again, talking about the same thing back and forth. Lily raised her eyebrows and scolded. She was scolding the gatekeeper. However, in Yin Chu's ears, he felt that she was scolding him. Now, as the Emperor of Dechu, he seemed to need servants to control him wherever he went. Yin Chu felt an unknown anger in his heart. The more he looked at Lily's face, he became more and more angry. He became even more displeased. He had a beautiful country, but inside he was full of arrogance and willfulness. He knew how to restrain himself back then, but now he was so arrogant and immoral. It made him feel sick. He married such a useless beauty. He was really the best of the Yin family. Shame. When he thought that the only child he had now came from Tao Bei's belly, even if it was a tiger's poison, Yin Chu still felt a bit of murderous intention in his heart. "You are so brave." Yin Chu took a step forward and raised his palms. When it comes to military force, Yin Chu has been fighting all year round and has been a soldier for half his life. Before he started his career, he was also a figure in the world. He is tall and powerful, and Lily is naturally no match for him. If he receives the slap, the quarrel will probably break up. His intention to hit Lily was very clear at this moment, because his eyes were red, and the murderous intent in his eyes was naked. The system voice in Lily's mind sounded as if he was anxious. "The Emperor's favorability is -10, beg for mercy from the Emperor, explain that you are doing this just to attract his attention, send out the married women who have been invited to the palace, maintain your position as the favorite in the palace, and reward Cherizia's wife for successful mission. If the mission is successful, you will be rewarded with unique piano skills. If the mission is failed, you will be punished by acupuncture." There is indeed a problem with the system. After completing the task from the beginning, the success rate is accumulated along the way. The higher the success, the better the chance of getting rewards. After failure, there is no penalty from the beginning. When the number of successes increases, it is like upgrading. Generally speaking, the punishment gradually becomes heavier. At the beginning, the punishment is just losing the things given by the system. Now that you have succeeded a few times, the system will directly start punishing you. If you continue to succeed, you will be unable to complete it one day. When the task is handed down, the final punishment may be to kill one's life. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 823. Although these are just guesses, Lily estimates that this possibility is 80 to 90%. Naturally, she cannot allow herself to succeed at this moment. She deliberately made the system succeed several times. Now she naturally wants to increase the success rate of the task. To get back to normal, she wanted to maintain the system's existence in a fixed position so that it would have no effect. She had succeeded in several missions before, but now the system has progressed to the point where the punishment is not just taking back what the system has given, but also punishing it. To the point of host body, it is time to fail. "Your Majesty, dare to hit me? Yin Chu. I have been fighting with you for many years. Our Tao family has paid so much money for your Yin dynasty, and now you dare to hit me." After Lily finished speaking, she took a step forward and got closer to Yin Chu. He raised his face and said, "I gave birth to an heir for the Yin family. Our Tao family has worked so hard for your dream of being the Emperor of Yin and Chu. Now you want to beat me. Will you still want to kill me after a while, the Tao family? If you cross the river and burn the bridge like this, all the people in the world will laugh at you. Do you have any conscience? Hit me, hit me. If you want to beat me today, I will immediately pack up my things and go back to the Tao family. In anger, Yin Chu raised his hands and was about to hit him, but Lily, to his surprise, did not panic or hide. Instead, she acted like an angry female leopard in front of so many people in the palace. He revealed that he had made a fortune from the Tao family. Yin Chu suddenly felt a surge of anger rushing straight to his forehead, and his sanity seemed to be about to be burned away. He raised his palm higher, and Lily raised her face, with sarcasm and ridicule in her eyes. If this slap dares to fall today, the emperor will have to think carefully about your country. If it were not for the Tao family support. The emperor has 150,000 elite soldiers. What are they going to use for food and drink? Without Tao's reputation and status, which great Confucian counselor would be willing to submit to you? For the sake of a Zhang noble, now the emperor does not even care about the relationship between husband and wife. In his hands you are so powerful that you don't know how to use it on others, but you only know how to use it on your own woman. You are such a hero and have such great skills. If I had known that your Yin Chu nature was like this, I really shouldn't have gotten married in the first place. Lily sneered and said, the word Zhang Minzu is a little more serious. A woman of Zhang Minzu's background, whose husband died, changed hands several times during the war, and the emperor treated it like a treasure. Who can you humiliate? The majestic emperor of Chu. Now I can see through it. The emperor's nature is like this, and his family background determines his vision. My mother-in-law always told me this in the past. I didn't understand it when I was young, but I finally understand it now. Yin Chu, who was born low, always likes low-level things. This is the tragedy of different families with different ideas, and the wrong family. What Tao Bei he likes, Yin Chu thinks she is pretentious. What Yin Chu likes, Tao Bei he thinks is vulgar, low, and unreasonable. At the beginning, Yin Chu wanted Tao's power. She could barely endure herself, but now that she had gained power, how could she endure it any longer? Lily guessed that the original owner was interested in Zhang Minzu. Most of it is probably not jealousy at all. It should be that his self-esteem was damaged and he couldn't bear such a blow. As a proud daughter of heaven, the legitimate daughter of a famous and prosperous family in Qi dynasty, her status is so noble. Even the Daki royal family couldn't marry her, but in the end they lost at the hands of a widow from a small family. How could she endure such humiliation? Lily's voice gradually became quieter when she spoke. Yin Chu's originally raised hand clenched into a fist when he heard Lily asking him to think about Zhongshan Shiji, and slowly retracted it. The murderous intention was already building up in his heart, but Yin Chu slowly calmed down at this moment. The Chu dynasty has not yet been unified, and the world has not yet been in his hands. The Tao family is still useful. Even if he wants to put Lily to death, he can't. It shouldn't be at this time. Explain to the emperor that if the task of calming down the anger in his heart failed, the emperor will be coaxed to change his mind. If the task is successful, he will be rewarded with a charming temperament. If he fails, he will be punished by acupuncture. Yin Chu withdrew his hand, and the system's voice came back again at this moment. It rang, and this time the system's voice became a little urgent. Lily curled her lips, stretched out her hand to pull the shawl she was pulling on the floor a little more over her shoulders. The emperor doesn't care about my life and death now, but I want to be favored by the emperor in the future. I don't care who it is. But as the queen of Dachu, I should manage this harem. What the emperor should be in charge of is how to calm the world and unify it, and should not revolve around women's lives all day long. Speaking of which, Yin Chu came here today just to seek humiliation. After Lily said these words, he couldn't even utter a rebuttal. This is why Yin Chu couldn't wait to finish the matter and wanted to kill the Tao family. She was afraid that one day Tao Lily would use Tao's kindness to her to restrain herself. Now it seems that her worries have come true. Unfortunately, Lily is right now. If you want to conquer the world, The Tao family is indispensable. The prestige of the Tao family. He can find world-famous counselors for Yin Chu to help him conquer the world. The Tao family's money can help him recruit soldiers and horses. The Tao family has supreme prestige among the people, even more than the former Dichi. If the Tao family helps him ascend the throne, when the world is unified, the name is just and right, and the people of the world will surrender. Tao was indispensable at this moment, and he had to endure Tao for a while, at least until he truly became the master of the world. From the moment he set foot on this road, Yin Chu no longer had the right to choose. It would be fine if he did not start this road. Once he started, there would be no turning back. No matter how arrogant Lily is now, Tao, for the sake of his family being able to contribute money, effort, and people, he should endure it for the time being. Only Lily is alive now. As long as she and Yin Yuanyi are here, there is no fear that the Tao family will not pay for it. Unreasonable, Yin Chu took a deep breath and his eyes became cold. At this moment, he was controlled by others, and Lily didn't even think about his future life. Now that he has endured this moment of anger, Lily is smiling like a flower. In the future, when she settles her scores after her fall, she will definitely regret being too arrogant today. Farewell, Your Majesty. Looking at Yin Chu's angrily turning away, Lily shouted. Her voice echoed back and forth in the palace, as if it was filled with laughter. Yin Chu's fists could be heard clenching. Tighter. Ding. The Emperor's favorability towards the host is -10. The task of coaxing the Emperor to change his mind failed and the women will be sent away. The success of the task will reward the beloved concubine's halo. When illuminated by the halo, the Emperor will be unconditionally obsessed with the host. If he fails, he will be punished by acupuncture, in his mind. The system's voice rang again, this time it sounded fast and urgent. Lily couldn't help but want to laugh when she heard the so-called pampered concubine's halo. The system was indeed driven into a panic, so she only needed to shine it. Things that can change a person's preferences can be released at this time. If the original owner loves Yin Chu deeply, he will definitely not be able to stand such temptation and will definitely be very thirsty for this halo. But for Lily, this thing is not. Don't let her lose her mind. What's more, Tao Beihe is a majestic empress of Chu. In this era where name is important and birth is important, if the empress does not behave well as a mother to the world, who would want to surrender her status and become a beloved concubine? The system only cares about making profits and enticing people, but seems to have forgotten that this is illogical. Lily suddenly remembered that several missions ago, the system had already reminded Yin Chu that his favorability towards him had only reached 5 points. Today, he made Yin Chu angry twice in a row, and his favorability dropped. If it drops again, the system's prompts today have dropped by more than 30 points. When Yin Min's favorability dropped to 0 before, the system reminded him that Yin Min and he were already mortal enemies, but now Yin Chu's feelings towards him, the favorability level should have reached a negative level, but the system didn't even mention it. Moreover, several tasks issued by the system failed one after another. They were said to be punished by acupuncture, but they were never punished. Moreover, the system seemed to have been issuing new tasks to itself, as if it was eager to wait for itself. Growth is normal. This feeling is like I am the prey drawn by the system. It is trying its best to fatten itself, as if it wants to devour itself at the right time. When I see that the prey is not fat, but has lost weight and has no meat, feeling a little anxious. Lily could feel such thoughts, but she didn't think about it deeply in her mind. She was not sure whether the system had certain intelligence or was some kind of monster. Since it could talk to her directly through her own mind, Lily don't dare to risk it or not whether it can sense your own thoughts. The palace attendants on duty sent word that the female relatives who had been invited had finally arrived outside the Chankyu palace. At this moment, even if the system no longer wanted Lily to fail the mission, it had actually reached this point. Obviously, after exhausting all the advantages to seduce Lily, the system has no choice but to send the women's dependents into the palace. The mission failed as this mechanical voice sounded. Lily's whole body was like being pricked by acupuncture, and the all-pervasive subtle pain seemed to be flowing together. Her face turned pale in an instant, and a large amount of cold sweat broke out on her back. She was even a little unsteady when she stood. For a moment, her mind there was only blank space, and the mechanical voice became softer. I hope the host mission will continue. After saying this, when Lily came back to her senses, it seemed that she could no longer feel the existence of the system for a moment. Empress, please take care of yourself. Hung Guan and others who had been waiting for Lily saw Lily's expression and thought that she was heartbroken because of Yin Chu's departure. Everyone thought that she was arguing with the emperor at the beginning. Holding on, as soon as the emperor left, she showed her weak look. Hung Guan bit her lip. I will go and invite the emperor back now. After she finished speaking, she turned around and was about to run out. Lily gritted her teeth. The severe pain seemed to penetrate into the bone marrow. Her body still retained the memory of the needle prick at that time. It was not a very severe pain, but it seemed to be a pain that could penetrate into people's souls. Thinking about it now, it made people's hair stand on end. She shouted, "Stop, just leave. If he really wants to come back, he will come back. There is no need to invite him." To be continued. Carrot. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 824. Lily said this tentatively. If the system was eager for her to complete the task, the system would definitely issue another task as soon as Lily said this. However, Lily had a premonition that the system seemed to have temporarily disappeared for some reason. Sure enough, she said after saying this, I don't know if the system is really gone, or there are other reasons, but my mind is quiet, and no sound is heard again. I don't know where such a thing is hiding, but it is unlikely to disappear completely. It is possible that it is still hiding in the dark and will come out again when the time comes. Lily will test the system again. If it is as she guessed, then there might be some changes in the mission this time. The ladies in the palace have already arrived. The backyard of Changkai Palace is filled with fruits and drinks. A group of gorgeously dressed but obviously uncomfortable women are leading their daughters or younger sisters to sit at the banquet. They don't look very grand. Dare to breathe. The original owner was born into a noble family, while almost all of Yin Chu's sworn brothers came from rough backgrounds, and the wives they married were from the same family as these people, and had nothing to do with Tao Lily. I have not seen these nominal sisters-in-law for several times, but this time I made an exception to invite them. However, this is the first time since Tao Beihe married into the Yin family. At this juncture, these people are afraid that Beihe will get the Tao family. For advice, I want to draw ideas from my own female relatives. Nowadays, anyone who is not blind can see that the emperor has developed a heart to prevent and isolate the Tao family. The Tao family may also be able to feel it, but after boarding the Yin Chu ship, after spending so much financial, material, and manpower, the Tao family has now been labeled as the Yin dynasty, and Tao has also become the Queen of Chu. It's hard to regret it now. Tao Beihe gave birth to Yin Chu's only son. From everyone's point of view, the Tao family was riding a tiger with a hard end. If they gave up halfway now, it would be equivalent to giving up halfway. If he persists, maybe when the Chu kingdom dominates the world, things may not completely turn around for the sake of the prince having Tao blood. No one can tell what will happen next. But at this moment, Tao's position was awkward, and anyone with a discerning eye could see that Lily was summoning women to the palace at this time, and no one thought that she had the idea of recruiting beauties to fill Yin Chu's harem. Before entering the palace, the ladies of the group still remembered the advice of the men at home, saying that if Lily asked them to take sides, they would all pretend to be stupid. He neither agreed to any of her requests nor made any promises to Tao. They walked for more than an hour. Although these women were not from a wealthy family in the past, nor were they delicate young ladies who could not bear the slightest hardship, the rules in the palace were strict and they followed the ants who led the way without saying a word. They were not allowed to follow the rules and walked for such a long time. Everyone was sweating. When they finally arrived at Chiangkai Palace, they were waiting for Xiao Huangman to announce that they had entered the palace. They said that they came because of Xiao Huang. He didn't follow the rules and was shot to death on the spot. This group of women followed their husbands to conquer the world in recent years, conquering the country and the north. It is not that they have never seen the dead, but they heard that the queen in the palace was willing to kill people at every turn, although they were a little envious of this kind of power. But still panicked. When he was led to the back garden of Chiangkai Palace. Before the group of people sat down, they heard a waiter singing a report that the queen had arrived, and a group of people knelt down. Lily dragged her long skirt and sat down on the main seat. These people were kneeling on the ground with all their bodies prostrate. The older ones had a calm temperament. Several girls aged 13 or 14 couldn't bear it anymore. They secretly raised their heads and looked up along the hem of their skirts. They happened to meet Lily's eyes as he looked at them. The girls were all young and green, and their eyes clearly showed envy of Lily and jealousy of her clothes. When they found that Lily was looking at them, several little girls hurriedly lowered their heads. Hung Guan brought hot tea. Lily held it in her hand, took the teacup and gently stirred up the tea foam. When the cup lid collided with the cup body, it made a slight sound. Lily didn't scream, everyone just said her legs were weak from walking, and now she had knelt for a long time and Lily stood up without shouting. Although these women were sealed because of their husbands, they were not from orthodox nobles. They only knew fear, but they didn't understand anything. According to the rules, at this moment, the body started to move involuntarily, and the servants and maids in the palace couldn't help showing contempt in their eyes. The emperor has now proclaimed himself emperor, but the harem is still empty. He only has one heir, the prince. Now I want to select a beautiful woman with both talent and virtue for the emperor, and select her into the palace to serve the emperor and prolong the life of the emperor. When everyone entered the palace, they had guessed a lot of Lily's purposes, but they never thought she would say such a thing. A group of women had never thought about it before. Now when they heard Lily's words, everyone thought it was ridiculous at first, but a few of them did. Thinking of the prosperity in the palace, I felt a little excited. In the palace, Yin Chu was in his prime, but he only had one son, Yin Yuanyi. Yin Yuanyi came from Queen Tao's knees, and the emperor did not favor him. The Tao family's status is now embarrassing. When the world is unified in the future, it is really a question whether the throne will pass to Yin Yuanyi. The unanswered question was just because Tao Bei was jealous, and Yin Chu never thought of just enjoying himself while his world was uncertain, so he never mentioned the matter of canonizing the palace concubine, and naturally no one dared to go in that direction. Think about it, now that Lily has stirred people's thoughts to life, many people's hearts are filled with excitement. When choosing a woman for Yin Chu, Lily was not prepared to show too much dedication. She just wanted to go as far as she could. Ambition is the best thing. Now Yin Chu owns the world of Dachu and has 150,000 strong soldiers. When Dachi was in chaos, he has conquered half of Daki, and has a high chance of unifying the world in the future. He only has one son, Yin Yuanyi, under his knees. Lily is not favored, and even the prince is not favored. It is not that no one dared to think about it before, just because Tao Lily is here. She treated Yin Chu like a female leopard guarding her prey. Tao Bei didn't speak. The Tao family's status was so high that no one dared to have such an idea. Now Lily herself has relaxed and wants that share of the world. Zhang Minzu is naturally not the only one who is rich. As long as someone's heart is moved, Lily is sure that the rest of the people will fall into her trap. Therefore, as soon as she finished speaking, she did not stay any longer and gave these families time to think about it, with a red look in her eyes. After gathering information for herself here, Lily turned and left. When I asked Hungwan about it in the evening, she said that 2 families had stuffed their wallets with her. This was like a signal, proving that both families wanted to enter the palace. Sure enough, 2 days later, without Lily calling him again, the person who gave Hungwan the purse took the initiative to hand over a sign and wanted to enter the palace. Lily personally arranged for the female officer to take the person into the palace, and this time there was no need for him to do so. They showed off their power, and a few days later, the second daughter of Yin Chu's eldest brother Yi entered the palace and became Yin Chu's nominal beauty. Power moves people's hearts, and even if they are staunchest brothers, once they are involved in the division of power, they will naturally have some selfish calculations. 2 of Yin Chu's sworn brothers sent their daughters to the palace. The other brothers who thought this was a bit ridiculous at first couldn't sit still. In the eyes of the sworn brothers, this world was conquered by everyone's joint efforts. It would be fine if it only belonged to Yin Chu, and everyone would share the wealth and honor. But now the boss obviously has other thoughts and actually sent his daughter to the palace at this time. Once the niece becomes pregnant with Yin Chu's son, the world will be shaken. At this time, Yin Chu must have the intention to destroy Bai He and kill the Tao family. Prince Yin Yuanyi will be crowned the king and rush to the fiefdom, and the world will definitely fall into the hands of others. It's okay if I didn't think about these issues at the beginning, but if the boss's daughter takes the lead, and the brothers go on to dominate the world, wouldn't they all be advantageous to the boss? In the past, the brothers worked together, but that was because Yin Chu treated the brothers equally, shared military power with them, and shared power with them. After he became emperor, several brothers were crowned kings, and everyone was satisfied. But now that the boss shamelessly gave away his own daughter for the sake of power, the others were naturally not to be outdone and began to think about sending their daughters to the palace. Having followed Yin Chu all his life, no one wanted to take advantage of anyone. Those who did not have daughters, their in-laws or their own sisters all wanted to send them to the palace, but since Lily and Yin Chu had a falling out a few days ago, she had the harem affairs firmly in her hands. Even if the brothers wanted to send someone in, they had no choice but to take Lily's route. Taking the initiative into her own hands and receiving one after another these kings of different surnames who used to be closely aligned with Yin Chu and had a close brotherly relationship to express their goodwill through their wives, Lily couldn't help but laugh as she held the news. Hungwan didn't know what happened to her master recently, but she was too smart to ask. Now the situation was going as Lily had planned. She smiled with satisfaction, while Yin Chu couldn't laugh at all. There have been many women in the palace recently, and many of them are her nominal nieces. Although they are not biological children and have no blood relationship with each other, the brothers who used to be brothers to her brought their daughters into the palace for her. When he was a concubine, Yin Chu felt that something was wrong. Now, it was easy for these women to enter the palace, but it was difficult to get out. Even if he had not touched these women, once he sent these girls out, he would the sworn brotherhood with all the brothers will come to an end. No matter how good the relationship between the brothers is, some of the older brothers will have to fall out with him. He had known that Beihi's nonsense like this would always cause him some trouble. Yin Chu was furious. Ever since a woman entered the palace, he didn't want to see Beihi's face in Changkai Palace for several days, nor could he go to those new entrants. Among the girls in the palace, fortunately, he still has Zhang Minzu, the interpreter, at this time. Zhang Minzu is the woman he longed for when he was young. Now that he has found her again, the taste of a beautiful woman is even more wonderful than he imagined. In this situation, in the irritating moment, Yin Chu was still worried about the important matter of unifying the world, and when there were such troubles in the harem that troubled him, resting in Zhang Gairan's arms was undoubtedly the best choice for Yin Chu. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 825. This was how Yin Chu doted on Gyron Zhang before Behe entered the mission. During this period of time, he still did the same. After nearly half a month, news began to spread in the palace that the queen of the Middle Palace had fallen out of favor. Gyron Zhang was doting on the sixth palace. When the rumors spread, the servants in the Changkai Palace couldn't sit still, but Lily was still stable, but she was stable, but the system couldn't bear it anymore. Suppress Zhang Gyron's momentum. Success will reward the enchanting temperament, while failure will result in the loss of graceful and moving dancing postures. After failing the last mission and being punished by acupuncture, the system seemed to have lost contact for about an hour, but she didn't know if this was her illusion, so Lily decided to verify it. In the past few days, she followed the system's arrangements and completed 2 tasks to please the Queen Mother. She also ordered someone to deliver some soup to Yin Chu according to the system's instructions. When she did all this, Yin Chu and others thought she had been tricked. Evil did not appreciate her affection at all, but Lily did not care about this. Now she has succeeded in 3 tasks. She has obtained a total of 3 options: silky hair, a pure and invincible smile, and a charming waist. As long as this task is completed again, she has completed 4 tasks in total. If Lily guessed correctly, if the system assigns another task to her when her task is completed this time, then if she fails again, the punishment she receives may no longer be if you lose those things given by the system, your body should suffer. The pain during the last physical torture was really special. If it had been anyone else, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to bear the acupuncture torture. After suffering once, I definitely don't want to suffer like this again, but Lily's tolerance has been improving. Good. She has been on multiple missions. What kind of difficulties and pains has she not experienced? No matter how uncomfortable the acupuncture torture is, it will be over in the blink of an eye if you grit your teeth. If you use this kind of pain, you can exchange for temporary paralysis of the system. She planned to use that time to receive part of the plot and the memory of the original owner in order to confirm whether the direction she was taking was wrong. And if it is determined that while the system punishes itself, it will also consume a large amount of energy, which proves that such a system is not completely invincible. It also has its own weaknesses. As long as it has a weakness, it is not that difficult to completely control it or even eliminate it. This invisible enemy is not as invincible as imagined. As long as it exists, it is so powerful. There must also be weaknesses. The new task released by the system this time is to suppress Zhang Gyron's momentum. Such a task is too simple for Lily. Zhang Gyron has been very favored recently. Yin Chu rests in her palace almost every night. She directly ordered people to stop eating meat and vegetarian food in her palace for 1 day, and sent Hung Guan to Zhang Gyron's palace, saying that she couldn't sleep at night recently. Feeling uneasy, he asked Zhang Gyron to hand copy 10 Buddhist scriptures for him to calm his nerves. When Zhang Gyron received this order, the voice in his mind that the system had completed the task rang out. Zhang Gyron's favorability to the host is -10, and Zhang Gyron's favorability to the host is only 0. Zhang Gyron has murderous intention towards the host. Zhang Gyron and the host have a life-or-death relationship. The task of suppressing Zhang Gyron's momentum is completed, and the reward is an enchanting and watery temperament. Coupled with the success of this mission, Lily has completed a total of 5 tasks assigned by the mission, and the next opportunity will come soon. Since the number of women in the palace gradually increased, Lily also established a series of rules. Each of these girls came to the palace for a rich future, and each had their own goals. Once these women entered the palace, Lily stipulated that they must go to his palace every 3 days to pay their respects. Once. This was not done just to torture them, but Lily wanted to establish the image of the Queen's supreme rights in their hearts. Only the torture was more As these girls become more aware of the benefits of power and status, they will strive for the top one by one. The harem has been a place of cannibalism since ancient times. The girls should have thought of such an outcome before entering the palace. Once, early in the morning, the girls had to wait outside Lily Chankyu Palace before dawn, waiting for her to get up and wash up. They had to wait for more than an hour. At this time, these girls had nothing but thoughts in their hearts. They all thought that if they could replace Lily one day, they would live such an arrogant and domineering life. When it was her turn to say hello once every 3 days, when Lily got up to wash up, Hung Guan whispered in her ear. Zhang Gairan didn't come. From the last time Lily asked Hung Guan to give the scriptures to Zhang Minzu in order to complete the system's campaign to suppress Zhang Gairan, forcing her to copy the scriptures 10 times for her within 10 days to calm down her nerves, Zhang Gairan had already developed feelings for Lily. Even though 3 days had passed, Zhang Minzu felt deeply ashamed. Today, she paid tribute to Lily every 3 days. She used the excuse of being ill and only sent someone to inform her, but she did not come. Lily sneered. Zhang Minzu was favored now, and she saw that Yin Chu didn't like her very much. Now she wanted to compete with her openly, but now she just wanted to say goodbye every 3 days. With Chu's favor, I'm afraid she would dare to do something bolder. Give Zhang Gairan a show of strength and eliminate the current situation in the harem where Zhang Gairan is the only favorite. If the mission is successful, everyone will be rewarded with the aura of Mary Sue, who is loved by everyone. Those who are illuminated by this halo will have an unconditional increase in their favorability of the host by 50 points. If the mission fails, the host has lost its enchanting temperament. When she heard the system's voice, Lily's eyes suddenly narrowed. She had successfully completed 5 tasks. The system didn't know if it was because she had tricked her before. This time the punishment was not released quickly. It is conceivable that the system wanted to punish her, but it also had to pay a certain price. Based on the system's delay in giving her the punishment result this time, Lily was sure that the system had punished her last time. After that, it really should have disappeared for a while. This proves that the system should not be omnipotent. She took a deep breath and tried to feel ecstatic in her mind, as if she was trying her best to get this so-called Mary Sue halo. She looked at the smiling face in the mirror, waiting for the palace servants to serve her. After putting on her clothes and combing her hair, she stood up. A group of girls outside the palace had been waiting for a long time, and their waists were straightened. Because of their low status, these girls had to get up before dawn. After arriving at Chankyu Palace, they had to wait for more than an hour. There were many mosquitoes in summer. When sitting in the palace, the maids behaved well. They didn't dare to make a single mistake. They sat for an hour and couldn't blink even if they were tired. You can imagine the pain they suffered after an hour. The girls all came here looking for a rich future. Now in front of the emperor we had not seen him a few times, and they had been in the palace for several days. The emperor had never come to sit in their palace. Instead, he often stayed at Zhang Gairan's place. The girls felt somewhat dissatisfied. Your Majesty, why haven't you seen the nobles come today? When Lily came out, after everyone paid their respects to her, brother Yin Chu's daughter, he couldn't help but ask first. Myron was the first among this group of girls to enter the palace. When she entered the palace, she also came for the position of the mother of the world. She originally thought that with her father's friendship with the emperor, it would be easy for her to climb up, but she didn't expect it. It had been several days since she entered the palace, but the emperor ignored her at all and instead slept at Gairan Jiang's place. Although Zhang Minzu was said to be from a noble family in the past, after the fall of the Qi dynasty, the world was in chaos. The Zhang family had already disappeared in the chaotic times. A phoenix was not as good as a chicken. Zhang Minzu had married again, but she was just a widow after her husband died, but the emperor, everyone was very dissatisfied with her being so fond of her. Especially after the founding of the Chu kingdom, Himiran's father was named a king with a different surname. Jiang Minzu was nothing, just a little widow, but she was able to be named a nobleman by virtue of her favor. For a prince's daughter like herself, her father was still the emperor's sworn brother, now only has the title of beauty when he enters the palace. Naturally, Himiran is very unwilling. She had endured it for several days, but after entering the palace, she had no one close to her. She didn't know who to talk to about her grievances. She had been holding it in for several days. Now she saw everyone coming to pay their respects to Lily, but Jiang Minzu dared to hide behind her. If she doesn't come out of the palace, it's okay for everyone to suffer together. Why does Jiang Minzu want to have special privileges? Zhang Gairan said that she was unwell, so today she only sent someone to convey the message. Maybe she was tired from serving the emperor last night. The emperor is now in his prime. Zhang Gairan has a beautiful appearance. It is common for the emperor to be rare. Lily curled her lips, took the handkerchief and pressed down the raised corners of his mouth, and said lightly. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions on the faces of the girls changed. Who knows if it's true or not, Himiran snorted, with jealousy in her eyes. After saying this, she clenched her fists bitterly and became silent. This is what Lily wants. She has been manipulating Jiang Minzu these days. When Yin Chu stayed in Jiang Minzu's palace, she didn't care. She even specially set rules for these new girls who entered the palace, just to accumulate their jealousy. Hard. These people are used to being outside the palace, and they are definitely not used to Len He coming into the palace. They originally thought about entering the palace with glory and wealth, but now the reality is completely different from what they imagined. The girls must feel a sense of loss in their hearts. Yin Chu escapes. What his actions aroused was the reluctance in the hearts of these girls and their resentment towards Jiang Minzu. Unfortunately, although Yin Chu was highly skilled in martial arts and good at fighting on the battlefield, he did not understand the thoughts of women at all. You guys have been in the palace for a few days. Are you used to it? There are a lot of rules in the palace. If there is anything you don't understand, feel free to ask your aunts. I pity you that you have just entered the palace for the first time. I have given you permission to invite your relatives to the palace to meet you. For once, we are tired today, please disperse. After Lily finished speaking, she waved her hand. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 826. Turtle has been keeping this group of girls for a long time recently. It is estimated that they must have a lot of things to say and complain to their relatives. Now Lily invites Yin Chu's sisters-in-law to enter the palace. The next days of Yin Chu will probably be, it's going to be difficult. When the girls heard this, their eyes lit up. After thanking each other, they all thought about how to complain to their relatives, and then they left separately. After these people left, Lily thought about the task assigned to her by the system to give Zhang Gairan a show of strength. She thought about it, summoned the imperial physician Ling, and ordered him to grab a few portions of the bitterest bodybuilding herbs and send them to the imperial hospital. After frying, they were sent to the Zikan palace where Zhang Gairan was staying at the beginning of every day, and several nuns were sent to watch her drink. If she couldn't drink it, someone would be sent to give it to her. On the first day, Yin Chu returned. He came angrily and wanted to scold Lily for being a snake-hearted person and poisoning his concubine, but when he saw that the medicine prescription Lily presented was not a harmful medicine but indeed a health-replenishing medicine, he had nothing to say. Zhang Gairan originally hated Lily for sending her to copy scriptures, so he made an excuse not to come to greet her, saying that he was not feeling well. Now Lily used this excuse to punish her, and Yin Chu was also blocked and could not speak, so she had to. He came angrily and left dejectedly. Taking this opportunity, Lily once again got the reward of the task of calming the emperor's anger issued by the system. This time the task was successful for the 6th time. Once Zhang Gairan's pet was distracted from the task completed, that is, more than 7 times. When the system releases the task again, if it fails, there should be no punishment for physical suffering. Yin Chu has grown up recently, and Lily in the Chankyu Palace has recently settled down, and no longer makes a fuss about letting him go to the Chankyu Palace to accompany her. This made Yin Chu feel that there was one less thing to worry about, and at the same time, more worries came to mind. Lily is jealous, and seeing that he favors Jiang Minzu recently, she makes things difficult for Jiang Minzu in every possible way. And the method made him speechless. In the name of doing good for Jiang Minzu, he deliberately made her cry all day long, and Jiang Minzu drank medicine for several days. The little face looked haggard at the sight, and Yin Chu felt heartbroken when he saw it, but the medicine was to replenish the body, not a poisonous prescription to harm people. Although Yin Chu felt embarrassed, since the medicine could not kill Jiang Minzu, Lily insisted they wanted her to drink it and made people stare at Jiang Minzu to prevent her from escaping. Drinking some bitter medicine is better than letting people kill Jiang Minzu at every turn like before. It's just that Yin Chu couldn't bear it when his sweetheart suffered. He originally thought that he would stop Lily after she had spoken out in the past 2 days, but he didn't expect that before he could stop him, his sworn brothers would take action first. First, the eldest brother He Dan, king of Dingbei, came forward and wanted to have a heart-to-heart talk with him, drink and chat with him. At first, Yin Chu didn't think about the meaning of his elder brother's words. King Dingbei has been with him for many years and has always been loyal to him. De Chu can be where he is today because he fought with him to kill the enemy on the battlefield. After the founding of De Chu, although Yin Chu was cruel to women, he is truly sincere towards his sworn brothers. Although he is an emperor now, Yin Chu is naturally happy that his eldest brother wants to chat with him. Now the world is tentatively settled. He became the emperor and had to deal with many things every day. King Dingbei held military power and trained troops and horses all day long. The two brothers had very little time to drink, and Yin Chu heard that his brother wanted to drink with him. He was so happy that he even put aside Zhang Gairen's request to invite him back to the palace and stayed with King Dingbei in the palace all night. That night, King Dingbei recalled with him the scene in those days when Yin Chu was still a commoner poor man and the two brothers pooled their money to buy drinks. Now that he thought about it, he seemed to still be vividly aware of it. Perhaps Dingbei King had shared hardships with Yin Chu, and the two brothers had a sworn friendship. Therefore, even if Dingbei King mentioned Yin Chu's downfall, Yin Chu didn't feel it when he recalled it. Annoying, it seems like it was yesterday. In the excitement, Yin Chu grabbed his brother's hand and talked about those years happily. When he talked about his excitement, King Dingbei looked stunned, and then put down the wine cup, then he sighed. Now that De Chu has established a country, Yin Chu thinks that he treats his elder brothers well. The eldest brother has even been granted the title of king and has 50,000 elite soldiers. Almost the lifeline of De Chu is in the hands of King Dingbei. This shows that I trusted him, and to this day, my brother has a lot of children, and he has gained status and reputation. Why is he still a little unhappy when he drinks? Yin Chu asked at that time, but King Dingbei was agitated by the question, Your Majesty, have you ever remembered how I could be named King of Dingbei? Among the brothers, there were not a few who were granted the title of Duke, and some held military power. However, there were only 2 who were granted the title of King, and King Dingbei held the most military power. The title of King Dingbei also had a great background. When King Dingbei asked, Yin Chu naturally nodded. Of course I won't forget it. During the Battle of Weibei, I led 5,000 elite soldiers to take risks to chase down Daqi's remaining troops, but accidentally got ambushed by the Zhao state. In the crisis, my brother ignored his own safety and fought desperately to save me. He even blocked the flying incoming troops for me. That arrow almost killed my brother. Now my brother still remembers that he said that he would be at ease as long as his brother was fine. When Yin Chu talked about the past, his eyes showed a soft luster. How many of us did we have? Brothers, when we became sworn brothers, we said that we don't want to be born in the same year, the same month and the same day, but we want to die in the same year, the same month and the same day. My brother's kindness on that day will never be forgotten by my younger brother. Therefore, after the founding of Dachu, I will never forget my brother's kindness. Huibei can capture it. I came down all because of my brother's desperate efforts to save me, so I named my brother the King of Dingbei. When he spoke these words, his face was full of excitement, but when he used the title that represented the supreme title that the emperor claimed, he did not notice the struggle flashing in King Dingbei's eyes. Yes, the brotherhood between you and me will remain unchanged in this life. I also swear to be loyal to the emperor to the death. I have nothing else to ask for. It's just that my little daughter has just entered the palace for the first time and is not familiar with the place. I only hope that the emperor can take the view of our brotherly relationship with me for my sake. I will take more care of her so that she can live a life of food and clothing in the palace without any worries, and I will be satisfied in my heart. Yin Chu is now nearly 30 years old, and his eldest brother is now in his early 40s. Years of military service have made his hair grow frosty white on his temples. When he said this, he looked a bit senile, and Yin Chu felt a surge in his heart. It makes me sad, thinking that after my niece entered the palace, I felt that it was inappropriate for my eldest brother to send his daughter to the palace, and it was not good for him to sleep with his cheap niece, so he always ignored her. Now I don't know what she is doing in the palace. Whether he was doing well or not, had he been bullied, and now that he still had his elder brother to take care of him, Yin Chu felt a little guilty. Thinking of King Dingbei's life-saving grace that day, and then thinking about his current neglect of King Dingbei's daughter, Yin Chu sighed and agreed to King Dingbei's request. When King Dingbei was sent out of the palace in person, he went to Hemiranir's palace to sit for a while, and on the same day he had people issue the decree to canonize Hemiranir as a noble. When the imperial edict was sent to Beihe Palace, Beihe asked for it. This was the purpose. She had wanted to do this smooth favor. Moreover, she was the one who promoted all of this. Naturally, Lily would not make things difficult for her, so she took out her phoenix seal without hesitation and promoted Hemiranir to a higher position in this realm. His will was sealed. Once someone opened the door and saw the eldest brother entering the palace and reminiscing about the past trip with the emperor, the daughter was promoted to a higher position. Life in the palace became easier and she became energetic. The second brother began to become unable to sit still and began to enter the palace and talk to the emperor. The emperor drank tea and had a heart-to-heart talk. After the second brother left, the second brother's daughter was promoted to a noble person, until the third brother, the fourth brother. Several brothers took turns to enter the palace, and when everyone's relatives and daughters were promoted to the next level, Yin Chu once again asked Beihe to come to Beihe with the imperial edict to have it stamped, but Beihe quit and went directly to find him. He went to Zhang Minzu's palace and handed the imperial edict in his hand back to Yin Chu. The emperor favored Zhang Gairan recently, has he forgotten all about it? There are only 1 queen, 3 ladies, 9 nobles, 27 beauties, and 81 royal wives. The emperor is very particular about affection, and I know it in my heart. So when the emperor wanted to canonize a few nobles, I did not make it difficult. But now that the quota of 9 nobles has been filled, and the emperor wants to appoint more nobles, is it necessary to ignore the patriarchal system? Or do we need to make another appointment with Taikang Temple? Is there a separate etiquette system for the tortoise divination ritual? Recently, Yin Chu was disturbed by several sworn brothers who took turns to come to the palace to talk. He was a little scared and a little guilty. He didn't know how to face them. The brothers recalled the past with him one by one, which made him feel very uncomfortable. Son, these guilts became the key to his promotion of titles to the daughters and sisters of his brothers. It was very easy to do so at first, but as time went by, Yin Chu felt that this was simple and would allow him to face his brothers. He didn't need to feel so guilty, so he sealed the title smoothly. Once his brother talked about him again, he would seal these girls as nobles. This way everyone was happy, but unexpectedly everything went smoothly before, but this time Lily refused to do it, and instead found he asked him to change the imperial edict. Yin Chu knew some of the positions in the harem, but how many people were granted one position was not clear to others. At this time, he heard that there were only 9 nobles, and now that the quota was already full, Yin Chu was a little confused. Although he is the emperor, he said that if he wanted to re-register as a noble, he would be ignoring the patriarchal system and would need to use a tortoise divination ceremony with Taekang Temple to select another position. The Great Chu was just established, and now many departments simply do not before he had time to set it up. Yin Chu had only decided on the most critical departments to handle important affairs for him. The so-called Taekang Temple had not been established at all. Now if he has to go to such trouble for a few women, he couldn't control the big things in the world, and now that a few women were having such complicated affairs, he was a little impatient, and his handsome eyebrows suddenly wrinkled. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 827. The Queen doesn't know what to do. It doesn't mean that everything in the harem is left to you to decide. Now you have to worry about such a trivial matter. What's the use of you? At this moment, Yin Chu knew how to express his anger. Lily hummed. He made a sound and glanced at Zhang Minzu, who was watching coldly. Now it depends on what the emperor wants to do. If he still insists on granting a noble title, the emperor will definitely build Taekang Temple. After divination, he will choose a good day and auspicious day, and then re-engrave the jade book slip. Only in this way can I do something easy. If otherwise, the quota of 9 nobles has been filled, and if the emperor wants to canonize him again, he will have to suppress one of the nobles and demote him to a beauty. No, after hearing this, Yin Chu didn't want to refuse. Each of these nobles had a close relationship with him, and none of them had to be demoted. He promised his brothers to take good care of these girls. How could any Lily come up with such a bad idea and demote their status? Is the queen jealous? When Zhang Gairan, who was sitting quietly next to Yin Chu, heard this, he raised his eyebrows and suddenly raised his chin. Ever since Lily asked her to give up her seat that day, a rift had formed between the two. Now it was a fight to the death between the two parties. When Zhang Minzu saw that Lily had angered Yin Chu, she naturally added insult to injury. She wished she could give Lily some more eye drops. When Yin Chu heard this, she was furious and scratched her head. He grabbed the things on the table and threw them at Lily. If you don't get jealous and cause trouble, you won't be able to live in peace, right? You can't get along well with the girls in the palace. You have to be demoted to someone else's status to be happy. Get out of here. Yin Chu felt that Lily proposed such a thing. The suggestion was like driving a wedge between him and his brothers, and the palms and backs of his hands were full of flesh. He was the one who brought people up. If his status was lowered, it would be a slap in his brother's face, and no one would be offended. Lily was so cruel that she asked him to offend these sworn brothers. The more Yin Chu thought about it, the angrier he became, and his expression became a little ferocious. Just as she was about to speak again, Lily stepped aside when she saw him smashing things. The brass wine cup rolled to the ground and spun around a few times. The wine inside spilled all over the floor. Lily also seemed to have a temper attack. His face turned cold and he rolled his eyes. Not to be outdone, the roster he held in his hand hit Yin Chu. Jealousy causes trouble? I don't want to deal with such a thing. If you don't want to ignore the ancestral family law, unless one of the nobles is missing, and you don't want to demote one person. If you have the ability, you will promote one person. Otherwise after you seal yourself as a noble, you can silence everyone in the palace, but how can you silence everyone in the world? Then the world will laugh at you for sealing a fake noble, and then it will really be fun, she finished. She stamped her feet again and made a hum sound. Then she seemed to be angry. She glared at Jiang Minzu, twisted her skirt and turned around to leave. When she walked out of the Zikan palace, Yin Chu's furious and unusual yelling continued behind her. Came, mixed with Jiang Minzu's soft voice of comfort. Lily left the palace, her originally angry face suddenly calmed down. She even had a smile on her lips. Yin Chu was so angry that she couldn't listen to what she just said, but she was sure that Jiang Minzu heard it. The opportunity to be promoted this time was perfect, and Jiang Minzu would not let go of this opportunity. She and she were already sworn enemies, and she would definitely want to replace Lily in her heart. But Chu was first established. Although there are only a few simple ranks in the harem, there are insurmountable distances between each rank. Jiang Minzu is just a nobleman now. If she wants to fight against herself, she will first try to climb to the position of wife, but once she comes, although she came from a wealthy family and was favored by Yin Chu, she was only a widow. She was sent to the palace by Yin Min as a geisha that day, so her background was one level lower. Although Yin Chu liked her, she did not. He gave birth to an heir for Yin Chu, so he had no merit in De Chu. With a poor background and no extraordinary achievements, if you want to climb up, you need a certain opportunity. Now Lily has handed the ladder to Jiang Minzu to climb up. If Jiang Minzu doesn't know how to seize this opportunity, she doesn't have to. If you don't mess around in the Dachuk palace anymore, you should get out of the palace as soon as possible and find an honest man to marry. The 9 noble positions in Dachu's harem are full. If the daughters and sisters of the remaining brothers are granted the title of noble, but the daughter of this brother is not granted the title of Jin, the brotherhood will inevitably create a rift. But if you want to name this brother's daughter, the noble position is full, and the title is forcibly canonized, the name is unjust and unjust. Now when Dachu is competing for the hearts of the people, if the world laughs at her because of the harem, what will happen to this matter? On the contrary, it is not beautiful. It's fine for several brothers' daughters to be honored together, but it would be unfair to the other girls to mention one of them. Therefore, at this time, Jiang Minzu will definitely seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to recommend herself to Yin Chu and be promoted to the position of one of the 3 ladies. In this way, her reputation as the favorite in the harem is still there, and her status is higher. As long as Jiang Minzu has a chance to conceive an heir in the future, when Dachu rules the world, her status will be extremely high, and the son will be more valuable than the mother. She may not consider making her son the prince. Lily understood Jiang Minzu's thoughts very closely. When the emperor's decree to confer Jiang Minzu as the protector of the country and his sworn brother's daughter as a noblewoman were sent to Lily from Xiaohuangmen, she saw that seeing these 2 decrees, Lily smiled so much that her eyes narrowed. Yin Chu's achievements in the war are undeniable. Even with the support of the Tao family, the fact that he could successfully go from being a commoner to becoming king and emperor must be something special. However, no matter how powerful he is in marching and fighting, but when it comes to dealing with women, he is a complete fool. If there are no shrewd women in his harem, and there are only fools like the original owner who are infatuated with him, maybe one day, when the world is stable, Yin Chu can slow down. He is slowly learning how to balance the harem, but it is obvious that he has not yet learned it. Back then, if Tao Bei was a little smarter and could think more about himself and love him less, the final result would not end up sacrificing his soul to do anything. The point of the task. The 2 imperial edicts handed over for canonization were stamped with their own phoenix seals respectively. Xiao Huangman, who originally came with the edict, thought that Lily would be embarrassed, but she didn't expect that she didn't even ask, and just after agreeing to the matter, Yin Chu couldn't believe his ears when he received the news that Lily had agreed to canonize Jiang Minzu as his wife. Tao Beihe has always been jealous, and she is very disgusted with Jiang Minzu. She tried every means to compete with Jiang Minzu for his favor. For this reason, Yu did not hesitate to use self-inflicted means to force Yin Chu to submit, and even the pregnant fetus in her belly was killed because of this. The miscarriage shows the depth of hatred between the two women. Although Lily changed a little after losing her child, she became even worse, as if she already hated Yin Chu. She was disrespectful to him several times, and even dared to use Tao to suppress him. She either scolded or tortured Jiang Minzu. This time, Yin Chu originally thought that Lily would object to his plan to ennoble Jiang Gui as his wife. He even thought that if Lily dared to challenge his authority again, the Tao family would fall out because of this. When he wanted to teach her a lesson, he didn't expect that Lily didn't come to make trouble with him at all, but calmly stamped the 2 imperial edicts with the phoenix seal. She really doesn't make any noise, so she got the phoenix seal like this. When Yin Chu asked this, he was still half convinced, but on the 2 rolls of bright yellow paper in front of him, the phoenix seal belonging to the queen was covered there, and the cinnabar was not completely. After it was completely dry, he stretched out his hand and touched it, and there was a bit of bright red on his fingertips. The waiter cleverly handed him a handkerchief to wipe his hands, and replied with lowered eyebrows and eyes. The queen is indeed neither noisy nor fussy, and she didn't even ask a word. The facts were before her eyes. Lily indeed exceeded Yin Chu's expectations this time. She didn't know if this arrogant woman had any plans in mind. Doubts flashed through Yin Chu's heart, and he instinctively felt that something was not quite right. He did have little ability to treat women, but years of life and death in the battlefield had honed his extremely sensitive sense. Just as he was about to think about what was wrong, Zhang Gairan couldn't bear it anymore. He reached out and grabbed the imperial edict that represented his status, and held it tightly to his chest. Now the queen has given orders and is rushing to make the jade album for the lady and the nobles. It will take as long as 15 days or as late as 10 days. The queen said that it will be delivered. The waiter saw Jiang Minzu's actions and showed a bit of disdain in his eyes. Seeing this, Jiang Minzu nodded excitedly. She became the wife of the great Chu kingdom, and now her position in the palace is only below that of the queen, in addition to the queen mother. Moreover, she has no heirs yet. If she gives birth to a son one day, that position is not unthinkable. Why does the emperor think so much? That day, she could talk back to the emperor in front of my concubine. Maybe she was afraid. Now that the emperor has thought of a solution, what can she do to make trouble again? At this moment, Jiang Minzu couldn't help but give her eye drops in front of Yin Chu again. When Yin Chu heard this, he was stunned at first, and then thought of Tao Beihe in the past, who was so pampered by the Tao family that he didn't know what to be afraid of, but now he knows how to compromise. Thinking that she gave birth to Yin Yuanyi for him, even though he didn't like it, Yin Chu still felt a little proud that he could restrain Lily. Ding! Your Majesty's favorability towards the host. Add 1, host, please continue to work hard. The voice of the system rang in her mind. When Lily heard this voice, and then heard what the system said about Yin Chu's good impression of herself, she couldn't bear it. Then he laughed. The reason why Yin Chu increased his favorability towards her was probably because he thought she had complied with his wishes this time. At this moment, Yin Chu probably thought that the problem had been solved, but he didn't know that she had already provoked the problem. Time is the day for Lily to watch the show. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 828. He thought that the balance of the harem was in his own hands, and his brother's wish was fulfilled. Yin Chu felt that he had taken good care of his daughter Yin Chu, who was brought into the palace by his brothers. Sometimes when government affairs were busy, he would occasionally take care of his slaves. The nobles waited carefully, and did not dare to make any mistakes in food and clothing. Tao Bei, who used to be jealous in the past, seemed to be a different person now. He no longer made trouble with him. He rested in the gentle countryside all day, spending time with Zhang. The lady played and sang, and Dechu was at peace for a while. The countries seemed to have entered into a temporary truce and tacit understanding. When Yin Chu originally thought that such a life could last forever, it didn't take long for his brothers to come to him one by one again. Talked. The conversation was still about the past, and it was still about asking him to help take care of his daughter in the palace. At first, Yin Chu was very grateful when he heard such words. He was grateful for the friendship between brothers and the grace of his eldest brother, King Dingbei, who risked his life and death to save his life in the past. But after saying the same thing too many times, he gradually became a little irritated. The nieces have now become nobles, and there will be no more titles for them. He feels that he has taken great care of the new girls who have entered the palace, but these brothers are not satisfied. They always bring up the events of the past and ask him to do so. He was a little bored when he heard it, and even when he started to hear the report of several sworn brothers asking for an audience, he happily drank with everyone. Later, Yin Chu didn't want to meet these people, and would rather hide in the palace and have fun with Mrs. Zhang. After getting the beauty Zhang Minzu, he seemed to have returned to his young self, satisfying his desire to marry Zhang Minzu at that time. He seemed to have regained his former self, which made Yin Chu feel strangely satisfied, but hiding in the harem all the time is not an option. When Yin Chu thought that the friendship between brothers was as solid as a rock, he didn't realize that his behavior of doting on a woman would cause resentment in the hearts of several sworn brothers who had a deep affection for him in the past. They sent their daughters to the palace not to leave their daughters and sisters as widowers. Yin Chu is now neglecting his relatives like this. Where can I still remember the slightest bit of brotherly love from that day? Even now, he still avoids seeing his brothers and rests in Zhang Minzu's troubled palace all day long. His brothers accompany him through life and death and conquer the country. Even risking his own life, he earned this vast land, not just to take advantage of women like Zhang Minzu in the future. Several brothers followed him and pinned their heads to the waistband of his trousers. They rolled out in a sea of blood that day. Now they finally got through the crisis of licking blood from the knife edge. With such a good life now, the brothers just sent their daughters to the palace. Although save some selfishness of your own. But Yin Chu was supposed to have children, and everyone just didn't want their wealth to fall into the hands of outsiders. However, Yin Chu would rather canonize a daughter of a down-and-out family, and even make her his wife, and put pressure on his own daughters. How can you, sworn brothers, be willing to do so? After the early court, Yin Chu was about to return to the palace, but King Dingbei did not leave after the court. Instead, he knelt straight outside Changle Palace where the emperor was, wanting to wait for the emperor to receive him. At first Yin Chu didn't want to see him, didn't want to talk to him about his harem, and didn't want to talk to him about things in the past. Some words were enough once, but King Dingbei kept talking about them over and over again. After receiving it so many times, Yin Chu no longer felt grateful at all. Instead, he had a vague feeling that King Dingbei was threatening him with his past kindness. When he heard that Xiao Huangman came to report that King Dingbei was kneeling outside Changle Palace to ask for an audience, Yin Chu said without hesitation, "No. I thought it was based on brotherly love. When he kneels like this, the emperor will definitely remember what his brothers said in the past, sharing blessings and sharing hardships, and not asking to be born in the same year and month." But he vowed to die in the same year and month, but unexpectedly he knelt outside Changle Palace for more than an hour. But Yin Chu didn't see him at all. King Dingbei's heart dropped. His heart that was originally very loyal to Yin Chu couldn't help but feel a bit resentful at this time. Logically speaking, among the several sworn brothers, although Yin Chu relied on the Tao family to gain influence, after all, he was the eldest among the brothers. When the Qi dynasty was in chaos, Yin Chu revolted, and he the boss did not compete with him for the position of leader, but instead assisted him wholeheartedly, otherwise the person sitting on the golden dragon chair today may not be who he is. If he was the one who started the uprising that day instead of surrendering to Yin Chu for his loyalty, could it be someone else who is kneeling and waiting to see him now? I don't have to suffer such humiliation at such a young age. King Dingbei felt resentment in his heart. He had a sullen face and a bad temper. The less Yin Chu saw him now, the more he wanted to talk to Yin Chu for an explanation. When Lily heard the news in the palace that King Dingbei asked to see Yin Chu but was rejected by Yin Chu, she immediately knew that the opportunity had come. If we don't sow discord now, when will we wait? In order to provoke a relationship between these two close friends, Lily started with women from the beginning. Now Lily was naturally not prepared to make an exception. She first found someone to go to Zikin Palace and ask someone to pull Jiang Minzu over and said that she was right. Jiang Minzu missed Jiang Minzu very much. When Bei ordered people to go to attract Jiang Minzu, she specially asked Hung Guan to choose a strong woman. The relationship between her and Jiang Minzu was on the same level, and they were already sworn enemies. This time Lily sent someone to force Jiang Minzu, saying that he still missed her. How could Jiang Minzu believe this? She had the idea in her mind to kill Lily and replace her. Jiang Minzu was also afraid that Lily had the same idea as hers. Otherwise, why would she send such a strong woman to pull her away without giving her any room to refuse? Thinking of the Tao family behind Lily and Tao Lily's arrogance in the past, Jiang Minzu became more and more suspicious that she had been favored recently and had been given the title of wife. Lily was jealous, so she wanted to kill her. If she dies then, even if the emperor wants to punish Lily, for the sake of the Tao family, he cannot let Lily be buried with him. It is not worth his while to die like this. In other words, even if Yin Chu loves her as much as her life, after her death, Yin Chu will not care about letting Lily be buried with her, but people cannot be resurrected after death, and Jiang Minzu has not lived enough. How can she be willing to die? So when she saw the people sent by Lily, she couldn't refuse, so she had to send her confidants to ask Yin Chu to come to Changkai Palace to rescue her. Now, Jiang Minzu had no other supporter except the emperor, so she was taken away at that time. All her hopes were placed on Yin Chu, and in the end Yin Chu did live up to her trust. Yin Chu and Jiang Minzu had similar thoughts. They both thought that Lily was jealous and crazy, and wanted to kill Jiang Minzu first and then punish her. At this moment, Yin Chu could no longer care about King Dingbei kneeling outside Changle Palace. In order to rescue his concubine, he didn't even sit on the chariot and started rushing to Changkai Palace desperately. At this time, Lily was instructing everyone to go to Jiang Minzu. At the same time, she invited He Gairan to come for tea and watch a good show. When Mrs. Zhang had just arrived and Lily hadn't had time to invite her to drink a cup of hot tea, Yin Chu arrived with a sullen face. He didn't even look at He Gairan, who was sitting aside, and his eyes lit up, and fiercely pushed Lily towards her. The table that was originally placed in front of the couch was kicked over, and the freshly boiled teapot on it flew up and splashed everywhere. Lily was already prepared. When she saw Yin Chu's actions, she knew that he had misunderstood that she wanted to. Jiang Minzu was given poison and forced to die, so when she saw him stretching her legs, she hid aside. When He Gairan saw Yin Chu, her heart was racing, and she had no time to dodge. The hot tea splashed all over her face. The tea had just been boiled, and He Gairan felt his face was burning. He didn't feel any pain at first, but was trembling all over. When he came to his senses and wanted to scream, Yin Chu had already pointed at Lily and drank angrily. He cursed. "You will not be allowed to step out of Zikin Palace from now on. If you dare to be violent to Mrs. Zhang again, I will not touch you for the time being, but your servants will behead one by one, and behead a pair of pairs. I want to take a look. The majestic Queen of Chu, if there is no one around you, let's see how you can be arrogant, Yin Chu thought of the scene just now when Jiang Minzu seemed to be forced to drink tea. Her eyes were about to burst, but she was still angry. Next time, you will give me whatever she did, I will return it to you intact. This bitch is so arrogant and immoral, how can she be worthy of being the queen of Chu? Humph. After he finished cursing, he picked up the tearful Jiang Minzu and walked away. Jiang Minzu leaned meekly in his arms. When she turned to look at Lily through the emperor's shoulder, tears were streaming from her eyes and a smile was clearly visible at the corners of her mouth. The servants in the Changkai palace were trembling with anger. Hung Guan endured her anger and led the people to clean up the mess. Mother, how dare he, how dare he? If it weren't for the help of the Tao family in the past, Yin Chu would be where he is today. Now Yin Chu humiliates Lily in public, calling the Tao family's daughter a bitch, and also saying that she is not worthy of being the queen of Chu. Hongwan and other popular. My heart ached, and thinking of Jiang Minzu's eyes when he left, everyone wanted to vomit blood. Lily was unhurried, looking at the direction where Yin Chu and Jiang Minzu were leaving and smiling. At this time, the two people had disappeared from the door. So what if you are smiling proudly now? The one who always laughs to the end is the winner. She whispered, Zhongshan Wolf is a descendant of Zhongshan Wolf. Once it gets its way, it will run rampant. I want to send this wolf back as soon as it was captured from the mountain. When she spoke, her voice was extremely low. He Gyron screamed fiercely, and the girl's tender face was burned to pieces. At this moment, she reached out and touched it without knowing the seriousness, and the injury became more serious. No one heard Lily's cry. Those few words. First, I asked the imperial doctor to come over and prepare medicine to treat Mr. He. The injury is so serious, I'm afraid there will be scars in the future. I originally thought that Mr. He had nothing to do after entering the palace, so I kindly invited the nobleman to come and drink tea. I didn't expect to meet him. The emperor is in a bad mood, and because of Mrs. Jiang, he only pities such a delicate person like He Gyron. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan ERWR. Chapter 829. Lily sighed, with a serious look on her face. Mr. Tao has a secret recipe for removing scars. After Mr. He recovers from his injury, I will reward you with some. I hope you can save your face. Now Mr. He meets Mr. He after such a thing happened. I feel aggrieved when I think about it. I heard that Prince Dingbei is still in the palace. When sending He Gyron back, he allowed her father and daughter to see each other. Maybe the emperor will not blame me for making my own decisions. After saying that, Lily sent people to invite King Dingbei, and at the same time ordered people to send He Gyron back. When he heard that his face had ulcerated and might leave scars, He Gyron almost fainted with his eyes open. For a girl, her face is her facade. If her face is ruined, what can she do to win favor? What can she do to fight for the position of queen? He Gyron thought that she had been in the palace for a long time, but before she got the emperor's favor, she was ruined. This face was ruined for her whole life. If her face was ugly in the future, the emperor didn't like her now, so what would happen in the future? When he thought that his injury was caused by the emperor, and because of Jiang Minzu, a bitch, He Gyron felt resentful and resentful. When she was sent back to the palace, King Dingbei was also invited to He Gyron's palace by people sent by Lily. The emperor was responsible for his daughter's injury, and he hurt her because of Jiang Minzu. He didn't care about his dignity. When he knew that he was kneeling outside Changal Palace, endured the strange looks from his servants, and put down his dignity, the emperor did it for a woman. He was not in the palace at all, and he knelt for a long time in vain. In the end, the brotherhood was never as good as that of a woman named Jiang. When he knew these truths, King Dingbei had murderous intent in his eyes when he left the palace. When Yin Chu returned to the palace with the frightened beauty in his arms, he comforted her in every possible way, and the two of them became incomparable. Only then did he remember that his eldest brother, King Dingbei, had knelt down outside Changle Palace and begged to see him. Originally, Yin Chu just didn't like that his eldest brother, King Dingbei, kept talking about the sworn relationship between the two of them recently. If he talked too much, Yin Chu always felt that he was threatening her with his favor. I just want to show him off. Yin Chu just wanted to warn him and let him understand his identity. In the past, although the two were brothers, there was no respect for them. But now that one is the king and the other is the minister, it is better for everyone to abide by their own propriety. He did not want to break up with King Dingbei. He was only going to let him kneel for a while longer and then send someone to send him back. Unexpectedly, something happened to Jiang Minzu. He was so worried about Jiang Minzu's life that he forgot about his elder brother. Wait until you come to your senses. When Yin Chu thought of King Dingbei, it was already getting late. However, Yin Chu hurriedly called Xiao Huangman in and was about to invite King Dingbei to come in to see him. Only then did he hear the report from Xiao Huangman that it was Dingbei. King Bei left the palace an hour ago. When he heard this, Yin Chu felt relieved at the same time. He was also vaguely unhappy. The eldest brother was still the same as before. Now in this palace, he could come and go whenever he wanted, and he didn't say hello to me before leaving. Seeing that he was his sworn brother, Yin Chu didn't want to argue with him, so he didn't say anything more. He just thought that King Dingbei knelt down to ask for permission today and left without seeing anyone else. In any case, I have lost some face from my brother. If it were in the past, Yin Chu would definitely visit him personally, or ask someone to carry his brother into the palace, and the two brothers would get drunk. The matter was over, but now Yin Chu didn't want to see King Dingbei again. Firstly, he didn't know how to face this brother, and secondly, his beauty Jiang Minzu was frightened and needed his comfort, making him unable to leave even an inch. He finally got Jiang Minzu and wished he could hold her in his arms every day. Now naturally he doesn't want to leave her either. He believes that King Dingbei has been with his brother for many years and should know what she feels like. King Dingbei also saw the scene when he was madly in love with Jiang Minzu. Now that he has got his wish, his brother will knowing his mood, I won't argue with him. After all, brothers always understand him. Therefore, Yin Chu just sent someone to deliver some things to Prince Dingbei's mansion. When the waiter delivered the things to Prince Dingbei's mansion, it was already 2 or 3 hours after King Dingbei returned to the mansion. Such an incident happened today, and it was very embarrassing for his daughter. Destroyed by the emperor, he knelt down to beg to see the emperor, but he avoided seeing the woman and made himself kneel for a long time. Now that something happened, he did not come in person, nor did he ask anyone to take him into the palace to explain all the reasons in person. He just used some gold and silver jewelry to comfort yourself. These things were taken from the Daki palace in the past when the brothers were fighting to share Daki's silver. The brothers all robbed a lot back then. Now that life is getting better, who is short of money? King Dingbei felt a chill in his heart. He remembered that after the Tao family helped Yin Chu succeed, Yin Chu now no longer sees the Tao family and does not listen to Tao's father's opinions. The Chu state was established, Yin Chu became emperor, and Tao's father in the end, he was only granted the title of duke, with no real power. All he got was some money that was extremely precious in the eyes of the common people, but had no real rights at all. Now, is Yin Chu going to do this to him? Brothers are sworn brothers and live and die together. It is really just a joke. In front of the waiter, King Dingbei smiled and shouted that the emperor's favor was great. As soon as the waiter left, he took out his long knife and chopped into pieces the things Yin Chu had given him. He didn't understand this truth before, but now King Dingbei found that he seemed to understand some of the emperor's psychology. That night, the original owner's mother, Lu Ronghe, who had not entered the palace for a long time since Lily entered the mission, entered the palace again. When Lu Ronghe entered the palace, he naturally did not need to hand over a sign like others. The Tao family was an exception and legend in Chu state. Even if the Tao family were not crowned kings, it was a pity that in the hearts of the real Daki survivors, their status would always be higher than that of the new ones. The emperor was much more noble. When Lu Ronghe led a group of people into the palace, he left the palace outside. Only the confidants of the mother and daughter were left in the room. She brought the doctor girl over, first checked Lily's pulse, and saw that her complexion was rosy and much better than before. Then she seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, and then asked seriously, "What have you been doing recently? It's rare that you no longer seek life and death. Your father said that everything is up to you, as long as you are happy, so my mother-in-law did not come to the palace again, letting you toss and vent the evil in her heart, but now you are in this situation, your father asked you what do you want. Lu Ronghe and her husband are not fools. Everything Lily has done recently is beyond the taste of others. Even Yin Chu has not come back to his senses, but he has a group of counselors." The Tao family quickly felt the benefits. First of all, they are monolithic, and several Yin brothers who share the same heart are vaguely suspected of falling out. In the past, these sworn brothers got together from time to time. In the court, King Dingbei and others vented their anger on Yin Chu, resisting Tao at every turn, and even wanted to suppress Tao. But things have begun to change recently. Although the Yin brothers are still in the same spirit, it is obvious that the expressions on the faces of the sworn brothers are no longer as natural as before, and Emperor Yin Chu's expression has become impatient. Sometimes even the sworn brothers want to talk about the harem. It's a matter of time. Yin Chu would even interrupt mercilessly and scold him rudely. This has never happened before, especially the news that King Dingbei knelt in the palace for nearly 2 hours yesterday, but the emperor avoided seeing him. At this time, the news has spread throughout the palace, and Yin Chu may not be able to react yet. But a few days ago, Bei He used the Tao family to force these sworn brothers to send their daughters to the palace, which made Lu Ronghe and his wife know better. "Didn't Anyang already know what my daughter is doing?" Lily smiled and asked someone to offer Lu Ronghe a cup of hot tea. After all, it was her daughter's filial piety. Lu Ronghe reached out to take it, but did not drink it. Here, she did know Lily's purpose of doing this. This was beneficial to the Tao family, so Mrs. Tao didn't care what Lily did these days, and Lu Ronghe never came to the palace again, leaving her alone. "Have you thought about it?" Lu Ronghe raised the corner of his mouth with a suspicious look on his face. "You were the one who wanted to marry me at first, and now you are the one who made the wrong decision. How can you be so willful, girl? You are like this. Let you what do you want, father and mother?" Tao Bei was determined to marry Yin Chu. For this reason, he did not hesitate to lower his status and marry a commoner boy who had nothing at the beginning, making the Tao family, a well-known family, a laughing stock in Daki. The scene at that time is still vivid in his mind. It has been less than 10 years now, and Tao Bei even risked his life for Yin Chu a few days ago. She didn't care about her own life, but now she is cold-hearted and calculating. Although Lu Ronghe disdained her daughter's love, she cared about her beloved daughter's life. She didn't care what the state of Chu would be like in the future, or what the Tao family would be like in the future. As her husband said, the Tao family had existed for many years. Our ancestors had encountered many storms in the past. If they could not survive the Yin Chu test, Tao's generation would not be defeated, but they would also die at the hands of others in the future. When you are in peace, you can think about danger. Only when danger is present, will Tao not get drunk in the hotbed of pleasure and dream of being a member of aristocratic family all day long. Your father said that he is not afraid that Mr. Tao will be in crisis. He will only rest assured if you are in good health. This is all your parents have to hope for. Lu Ronghe sighed, and there were a few traces of his delicate makeup on his face. With a look of concern that could not be concealed, Tao Bei put the teacup down. Tao Bei seemed willful on the surface, but in fact he had a very strong temper. At first, Tao's father calmly watched his daughter play, and indulged her until she said this. The evil in his heart, but as time went by, Tao's father became a little impatient. He was not afraid that the Chu kingdom would be defeated, nor was he afraid that he would be implicated by Lily, but he was afraid that his daughter would die with him after Yin Chu was tortured to death due to his daughter's character. There is nothing more sad than heartbreak. Recently, Lily has stopped making noises and no longer competes with Jiang Minzu for favor. Such a quiet and well-behaved person makes people even more worried. An inexplicable sadness came to her heart. This should be the emotion of the original owner. Lily reached out and grabbed Lu Ronghe's hand. Tao's parents were not afraid of being implicated by the original owner. This was the loving heart of their parents, but the original owner was absolutely unwilling. She doesn't want to hurt her parents, this is Tao Bei's intention. Even if she didn't accept the plot at this moment, Lily had an inexplicable feeling that she didn't want to implicate Lu Rong and his wife. She just wanted the two of them to live in peace for years to come. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 830. He Chengui came to see your father in disguise tonight. Lu Ronghe grabbed Lily's palm with his backhand and said with a cold expression, He Chengui is the name of King Dingbei. Bing Quan is no longer the ordinary martial artist he was back then. Few people in the world dare to call him by his name like this. His daughter seems to have changed a lot recently, but what exactly has changed? Lu Ronghe seems to be unable to tell. This is still the case. The daughter she gave birth to, I looked carefully, her features were hers, and the pride in her eyes was hers, but I always felt that something was wrong. She seemed to be more refined, and she seemed to be more sensible than before, maybe after being hurt by love. With the changes, Lu Ronghe suppressed the doubts deep in his heart. Ding. Ask Lu Ronghe for help, tell the news about Mrs. Jiang's favor in the palace, and suggest to her that Tao Kuagong and King Dingbei join forces to suppress Mrs. Jiang's arrogance. If the mission is successful, you will be rewarded with a pair of lotus jade feet. With these feet, you can attract 50% of the eyes of the opposite sex will be met, and if you fail, you will not be punished by acupuncture. The voice of the system in Lily's mind rang again. After many successful missions, the system was no longer as vigilant as before. The punishment was released, but it was only after she succeeded several times in a row that the punishment of acupuncture was released again. Before proposing this punishment, the system even explained in detail the lotus jade feet that would be rewarded after the mission was successful. Benefits, as if trying to seduce her. If other women, or even the original owner, had heard such a reward, they would have been delighted. It could attract 50% of the attention of the opposite sex. Even if it was just a pair of feet, it would be incredible. Whether it was the voice or the thin waist and long legs, the previous gifts had never had such additional attributes. It can be seen that the system's investment this time was not low. Lily was slightly moved by the fingertips of Lu Ronghe's hand. If the mission fails at this moment, it can consume a certain amount of energy from the system and suffer acupuncture, but this way. If you want to seduce the system to deal with her next time, it shouldn't be easy. She is wary of the system, but at the same time, the system should also be wary of her. Otherwise, the mission must be successful more times than the last time before the system will issue this punishment. Lily also wants to see it, herself after the mission is successful again. After surviving this time, she wondered whether the punishment the system would give her next time would be more severe than the acupuncture punishment. She wanted to find out where the bottom line of the system was, so she hesitated for a while and decided to take another risk. Follow the instructions given by the system. Anyway, What the system requires is to ask Lu Ronghe for help. He also suggested to her that she should advise Tao's father and join forces with King Dingbei to suppress Jiang Minzu's arrogance. It did not require Tao's father to do what he said. This task could be exploited. Lily took a deep breath. Auntie, now the Emperor only favors Mrs. Jiang and doesn't take me seriously. I really can't swallow this. Today, Mrs. Jiang just came to my palace, and the Emperor was deeply afraid that I would harm her, so he hurriedly took her away. He Gairan's face was burned. When I sent her back to the palace, I heard that King Dingbei was asking to see Yin Chu in the palace, and he specially allowed her father and daughter to meet. Maybe he Gairan had said something to King Dingbei, and then I want to discuss something with my father. I think she can go back and ask her father if she really wants to make Jiang Minzu. This matter is not impossible. Lily didn't want to talk too harshly. Lu Rong and his wife looked at it. It hurt her original owner to the core. She even wanted to marry Yin Chu, and supported him in committing crimes. He made fun of the centuries-old reputation of the Tao family. This shows how much the couple loved Tao Beihe. Ruo Beihe said it too clearly. If Lu Ronghe was angry for a moment, he really thought that she was trying to compete for favor. Although he had completed the system's tasks, he might have deceived the Tao family. So Lily only explained Lu Ronghe's plan for King Bei to go to the Tao mansion. Lu Ronghe felt confident about the affairs in the palace, and then she winked at Lu Ronghe. Dad is very resourceful and has many counselors in the house. Dad must know what to do. Mom should understand what her daughter is thinking. I, the girl of the Tao family, would rather stand in pain than kneel down and cry, she said. After saying this, Lu Ronghe's eyes flashed with suspicion. Lu Ronghe vaguely seemed to understand the meaning of Lily's words, but after thinking about it carefully, what did she want to do and what she meant, but it seemed that she had not said anything clearly. Lu Ronghe was surprised, thinking of Lily just now that she was savoring the wink given to her. She couldn't help but wonder if Yin Chu had planted spies in the Changkai palace, so her daughter now had to set up an ambush even if she could say a word. Lu Ronghe's guess was that it was impossible. He no longer made plans for King Bei to go to Tao Mansion, and planned to discuss it with his husband after returning. Ask Lu Ronghe for help and tell the story of Mrs. Jiang's favor in the palace. The task is completed. Suggest to Lu Ronghe that Tao Qiagong and Ding Bei Ho join forces to suppress Mrs. Jiang's arrogance. The task is completed and I will reward you with a pair of lotus feet. The task was completed again, and when the voice of the system rang in his mind, Lu Ronghe, who had something in his mind, stood up with a gloomy face and prepared to leave. The girl she held in her hands was like a pearl. In just a few years, she couldn't even speak freely anymore, and she still had scruples when talking to her own mother. This showed that Yin Chu was so wary and defensive about her that it was outrageous. She took a deep breath. I'll go back and have a good discussion with your father. Jiang Minzu, you don't have to think too much. A cheap maid, just a plaything, is not worthy of your anger. I know, I'm just angry that the Emperor is infatuated with this despicable daughter, which makes me lose face. I, the Tao family's daughter, don't bother to compete with her for favors. Mom, watch carefully, the drama has just begun. Lily curled her lips. When Lu Ronghe heard her say this and saw the smile in her eyes, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Lu Ronghe entered the palace just as quickly as he left. At this moment, Yin Chu didn't know that he had lost the heart of King Dingbei, his brother who had loved and been loyal to him in the past. During the morning court session the next day, King Dingbei stood among the ministers and didn't know what to do. He was as talkative as usual, and was used to King Dingbei mentioning the events of the past to him from time to time. Although Yin Chu was irritated, once King Dingbei stopped mentioning it, Yin Chu became a little worried. If something is abnormal, it must be a monster, especially yesterday when he made his brother kneel for 2 hours outside Changal Palace and then forgot about him. At this moment, Yin Chu felt a little guilty when he thought about it. He hesitated for a while, and after retreating from the court he sent someone to invite King Dingbei to the study. Is my brother still angry with me about what happened yesterday? Although I didn't see my brother yesterday, I was busy with something. Yin Chu couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed when he thought of what happened yesterday. He wanted to explain a few words, but then he remembered if he said that he had forgotten King Dingbei for the sake of Jiang Menzu, bad blood would definitely arise between the brothers, so when the words came to his lips, he changed his words. He didn't know that he had thrown boiling water on He Gairan's face in anger yesterday, and he didn't know that King Dingbei had already heard the whole reason from his daughter's mouth. Now that he lied, King Dingbei sighed first, and then he sneered, with a chill in his heart, but a respectful and understanding look on his face. I don't know etiquette, and I have lost my sense of propriety recently. It was just because the emperor registered Mrs. Zhang as one of the 3 wives, and I was old and confused for a while. Thinking that the emperor was not happy with me, so he only made the minister's unsatisfactory daughter a nobleman. In a moment of jealousy, he did irrational things and caused trouble to the emperor. Please forgive me. King Dingbei finished his half-truthful words and bowed his head. At the beginning, he was indeed dissatisfied with Yin Chu just because of his daughter's affairs, but now, he is no longer just feuding with Yin Chu over his daughter's affairs as before. Yin Chu first insulted him and did not care about his brothers. Jiang Menzu, a widow, could make Yin Chu lose his mind and ignore his brother's feelings. After his daughter was injured, Yin Chu probably didn't know the details, so unfair. If you save face for yourself, what kind of brother do you think of him? Yin Chu was shocked when he heard what King Dingbei said. He realized later that he had always felt that after entering the palace, the relatives of several brothers should all have the same status and should not be differentiated from each other. Therefore, they were mentioned as nobles. However, there were only 9 nobles at the beginning. It was not appropriate for anyone to be promoted or demoted. Therefore, it was only then that I mentioned Jiang Menzu to make room for the other one. I forgot about Jiang Menzu's origins. They are different, but they are more important than the daughters of the brothers. No wonder the eldest brother has come to the palace many times recently and brought up the past. I am afraid that he just wants to say this, but due to brotherly love, he is inconvenient to speak out. He didn't know what was going on, so he just thought that King Dingbei wanted to threaten him with kindness and was impatient with him. Thinking of this, Yin Chu thought of the other brothers' actions of entering the palace again, and couldn't help feeling extremely guilty. He wanted to King Dingbei was left to drink and apologize, but it was easy to be cold-hearted. How easy was it to repair the broken brotherly relationship to the past? Dingbei Wangxiu and False Snake drank a few drinks with Yin Chu and listened to him talk about the events of the past. This time, it was Yin Chu who was feeling emotional, but it was Dingbei Prince who was impatient. After talking about it, the more he looked at it, the more he felt that Yin Chu was hypocritical. He put down his cup and left on the pretext that he was ill and couldn't drink too much. As soon as he left, Yin Chu thought about it more and more wrongly. He remembered the figure who had just appointed King Bei, and thought that his eldest brother had knelt for such a long time yesterday. He got drunk and impulsively drafted a decree to appoint He Gijun as Mrs. Pingyang. When the imperial edict was delivered to Lily, Lily knew that Yin Chu was now in chaos. The news spread that He Gairan was conferred the title of Madam, and the other brothers could not sit still. We were all sworn brothers. We had agreed on that day to share blessings and share hardships. Why did the eldest brother's daughter become the madam to this day? The other brother's female relatives are just noble people? To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 831. There was a bad feeling between the brothers, and they were no longer as close as before. Because of the daughter's matter, many of them looked a little embarrassed when they met. They wanted to tell the emperor that he was acting unfairly, but they couldn't speak when the matter came to pass. So at the court, several former sworn brothers took advantage of Jiang Minzu. They couldn't directly say why everyone's daughter is a nobleman, but the eldest brother's daughter is a madam, but they only mentioned that the emperor should not favor a young widow. He also said that his origins were not very clean. Yin Chu was the oldest of the two, and he was a little unhappy at first that his brothers were in charge of his harem. He didn't understand why he had to be criticized by others for liking a woman. It was just that there were too many people talking about it, so he would inevitably there will be pressure. Things above the court are worrying. De Chu has been resting for a year, and the countries have been stable for such a long time. I am afraid that war will break out again soon, and there is also trouble in the inner palace, with a few women after a play. He was criticized by several brothers during the day and advised him to send Jiang Minzu away. At night, Yin Chu didn't know how to face Jiang Minzu, and he didn't want to go to the palace of his nieces. After thinking about it, he came to Nyida's palace. He seemed to have nowhere to go. At this time, Yin Chu suddenly remembered that he had a son. Every evening, Yin Yuanyi would go to the Changkai palace. Firstly, Lily would check his homework and teach him some strategies and principles of life. Secondly, Lily wanted to fulfill his motherly duties for the original owner. Yin Chu remembered, when I was in Yin Yuanyi, I heard that Xiao Huangman reported that Yin Yuanyi was now in the Queen's palace after school, and I felt a little unhappy. However, he had already come out and there was no reason to go back home. What's more, all the places in the palace belong to him. He go wherever you want. There is no reason not to dare. When they arrived at the Changkai palace, Yin Chu had a gloomy face, and Lily was playing Go with Yin Yuanyi. The child was young. But he has a calm temperament and is not very similar to the original owner. The Tao family invited the world-famous Gu family to teach him the art of emperors and taught him well. He plays Go very well and is not anxious when he loses. When he gets a piece, he will be more careful next time and will not make the same mistake twice. He is a very careful child. Lily praised him. A few words later, when Yin Chu came in, she was arranging the broken hair on her son's face. With a smile on his face, Yin Chu felt angry in his heart. When he saw Lily, he couldn't help but vent his anger on her. You lose your mind by playing with things. You are uneducated and have no skills. As long as you have a good background, you will be fine. But as the Prince of Chu, Yin Yuanyi does not study or study all day long. How can I accompany you to do this woman's plaything? He was a little upset after being accused by several brothers, but he didn't know what to do. He was filled with anger and didn't know where to turn. He only vented his anger when he saw Lily, and Lily felt like she had a mirror in her heart. Recently, Yin Chu has been like a person who has been forced to panic, a little anxious, like a trapped lion. Lily's eyes turned cold, and she was not angry when she heard Yin Chu say this. Just cut my son's hair. She straightened his clothes again and saw the worry that could not be concealed in his eyes. Such a young person already understood the situation of parents having a bad relationship. But the sensible ones refused to say it out loud, and just kept it in their hearts. Yin Chu didn't know how to cherish such a good son, but often scolded her. Lily called Hung Guan out and asked her to take Yin Yuanyi down. Yin Chu was furious. When he saw this scene, he drank without thinking. As a Prince of Chu, you don't know how to study hard. Instead, you only know how to play all day long. How can you be worthy of taking over the position of the Emperor of Chu with such virtue? Recite the Book of Songs. If you can't recite it, I will beat you with a cane. Yin Yuanyi responded softly, and when he was about to kneel down to recite the Book of Songs, Lily reached out to stop him and glanced at Hongguan. Take the prince back. After she gave her instructions, Hongguan naturally listened to her words, picked up Yin Yuanyi, and quickly walked out of Changkai Palace before Yin Chu could speak. Why is the emperor so crazy? asking the prince to recite the book of songs. You say it as if the emperor can recite it. Lily flipped her hair and said this, and couldn't help laughing softly. Yin Chu heard this, his face turned livid instantly. Although Lily said this with a smile, in Yin Chu's opinion, it was like a slap in the face. Yin Chu was born in a rough place. Chronicles in this era are precious objects, but not everyone can read them. The royal family of Dichi was corrupt in the later period, and they were afraid that people would be dishonest if they knew too much. Therefore, the education of books was extremely strict, and children of non-aristocratic people, it is even more difficult to be literate. The family background of the Yin family was not high at first. When Yin Chu was young, his mother Wang sent him to practice martial arts. He had great strength in his hands, but he could not really read a single big character. After Tao Bei he got married. Although Tao Bei he had thought about asking someone to teach him how to read and write, Yin Chu didn't want to show his incompetence in front of Tao Bei he when he first came. By the time he was in his 20s, his personality had already been established. He was brave and aggressive, but he really didn't like reading and literacy, thinking it was unmanly. Later, when Chu was first established, Yin Chu found that he was illiterate and couldn't even read memorials, so he hired someone to teach him how to read. Now he can recognize the characters, but he really doesn't know how to cultivate sentiments such as the Book of Songs. When he was scolding Yin Yuanyi just now, he was just angry. Seeing that Yin Yuanyi and Lily were tired of being together, and Lily didn't like it, so he turned his anger on his son. He didn't expect Lily to slap him in the face like this, in front of the servants. Alluding to his lack of knowledge and skill, murderous intent surged in Yin Chu's heart, and his teeth immediately began to bite, with a blood-red murderous intent flashing in his eyes. Lily slapped Yin Chu in the face, as if she didn't see the angry look on his face, and asked with a smile. "Why is the emperor free to come to Changkai Palace today? Is there something you want to discuss with me?" Yin Chu was furious at this moment, but he couldn't find an excuse to vent his anger. Before the incident about the Book of Songs was revealed, he was still so angry that his heart ached. Lily seemed to be nothing, and Yin Chu clenched his fists. He wanted to punch her in the face. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Lily sitting down on the soft couch beside her again. She tilted her body, and her toes were looming out of a pair of small feet that were originally hidden under her skirt. Wearing embroidered shoes, but the pair of lotus feet attracted most of Yin Chu's eyes at once, making him seem to have vented most of the anger in his heart. He originally wanted to scold, but when his words came to his mouth, he turned into. Recently, several brothers have mentioned Zhang Minzu's matter. Why can't you tolerate such a little woman? Several brothers have always ignored their own women's affairs, but now they bring it up frequently. Yin Chu complained and was bored in his heart, and he couldn't help but get angry when he opened his mouth. Lily poured the tea and took a sip. When she heard Yin Chu's words, she raised the corners of her eyes and sneered, "A little widow of unknown origin has now become one of the 3 ladies of Dichu. I don't feel embarrassed, I feel ashamed to see anyone. After all, your sworn brother's daughters are also dignitaries whom you personally anointed. Who is Zhang Minzu? He can be superior to these people. Now he asks me why I can't tolerate her. I'm not a picker of rags like the emperor, I don't dislike anything that smells good or smells bad." When Yin Chu saw Lily's feet, he always felt that the more he looked at them, the more he liked them. He didn't expect Lily to speak like this, and an unknown fire surged out of his heart. When he thought about what Lily said, he still didn't understand it. Asked what Zhang Minzu meant, the sworn brothers immediately pointed at Lily's nose and scolded, "You still have the nerve to say that there are only 3 wives in the harem. Since you know this, you still want to bring your nieces into the palace. You, poisonous woman, do you want to make my brothers alienate so that you can be happy?" "That's right." Lily's eyelids drooped, and she put the cup on the table with a bang. At the beginning, the Queen Mother said that the Emperor's harem was empty and that I was jealous, so she refused to let you go. As a result, only Yuanyi is the only one in the harem. I just fulfilled your mother's wish. What's wrong? You also know that Dechu was just established. How many qualified nobles are there? If not their descendants, who should I bring into the palace? Like Changping, find some pink-headed prostitutes to come into the palace to serve you. Don't taint my reputation and ruin my reputation. Hand. Yin Chu was speechless by her. It was clear that he was so harmed by her that he didn't even dare to see his brother. Now she was fierce and ruthless. The two broke up on bad terms again. The next day, Sun Palace, the news came out that Zhang Minzu had been demoted one level, from madam to noble, because she had angered the Queen Mother. It seems that Yin Chu thought about it after he returned and discovered the crux of the problem, and then came up with the solution. There are only 3 ladies available, and no one is satisfied with whoever is promoted. If you want everyone to be happy, I am afraid there is only a way to balance it. Unfortunately, I was made guilty by King Dingbei before, so I promoted He Gairan. This time it was too late to regret it later, as there was a gap in status, so Yin Chu had to find a way to reward these nieces with a lot of gold, silver, and jewelry. The final result was that Yin Chu wronged his sweetheart Zhang Minzu and compensated him with a lot of gold, silver, and jewelry. However, none of his brothers appreciated it. The brothers all felt that he was too ruthless and unintentional. By the time Yin Chu realized it, the rift had already been created. Where can it be repaired? Zhang Minzu was demoted from wife to nobleman. Even though this was just one of the emperor's methods to balance the inner palace, she was still really slapped in the face. When the news came out, the system's voice in Lily's mind rang. Ding! Give Zhang Gairan a warning and eliminate the situation where Zhang Gairan is the only favorite in the harem. The mission is completed and Mary Sue's halo will be rewarded. The mission released by the system a long time ago was not completed until this moment. When Lily heard this sound, she breathed a sigh of relief. After getting this halo, she thought about it and prepared to go out for a test. The system originally explained once this so-called halo shines on others, they will have an unconditional favorable impression of you, which shows how powerful this halo is. To be continued.